Hey everyone, this is Charlie. Welcome to Above the Cloud. So this week we've got a new sponsor, Vendasta. We're happy to have Vendasta on board sponsoring this podcast as well as the Tech Adoption Index program and our November 7th Tech Adoption Summit event. Vendasta is really moving in the direction that we're talking about at the Tech Adoption Index of moving to SaaS-based platforms for small businesses. And so we're very much in alignment with what we're talking about and where their business is going. And that all sort of came together in a white paper we did recently called The Full Stack Tech First Future. Really encourage you to read it. You can find it at the lsa.org. That's the lsa.org website under Insights and Reports. You can find it there and download it for free, and we encourage you to give it a read. So, this week we have an interview with Talithia Kornweibel, who is the head of marketing at Gusto. We're incredibly excited to have landed an interview with someone of her stature at a company of Gusto's importance in the small business cloud. So my colleague Neil Polachek and I were in San Francisco together last week, and we paid an in-person visit to see the new Gusto offices in the Dog Patch region of San Francisco. Amazing new facility, converted from an old shipping facility, so it has a big hoist and hook hanging from over the main floor of the office. Sort of intimidating feature, but the offices themselves are very sleek and warm and really incredible. And you're not allowed to wear shoes. So I managed to abscond with a couple of pair of Gusto souvenir socks. I'll post a photo of those on Twitter one of these days. Anyway, so a couple quick things on what we learned in talking to Talithia. One, we learned that Gusto has a lot of headroom to grow this business. They have 60,000 customers, which is really 1% of the addressable market. So while they're taking customers from ADP and Paychex, certainly, their biggest competitor is companies that don't do any real formal HR or payroll work. They're using pen and paper and doing things manually. And so Gusto's prop to those companies is, we'll help you with compliance. We will help you avoid issues with the IRS or state tax authorities and so on and so forth. So the company has an incredible amount of headroom. And they're a very ambitious business, as she made it very clear. We asked a number of ways, what channels they're pursuing, what other areas they're planning on moving into, and there's certainly we didn't get a no when we asked, if Gusto is planning to build out a full suite, sort of an SMB OS from their entry point of HR. So it's a really fascinating conversation. Rather than me blather on about it, why don't we just go right into it? So here is our interview with Talithia Kornweibel from Gusto. One quick note there, Talithia will be a headline speaker at our upcoming Tech Adoption Summit, November 7th in San Francisco. So we hope to see you there. Thanks, and here we go. Hey, Talithia, how are you?
I'm doing great, Charlie. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we have Talithia Kornweibel. It's very phonetic. It's a long name. It's quite phonetic. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Neil Polachek.
Morning, Charlie.
Hi. So we're sitting here in Gusto's really, really cool new offices. Sort of new, right? Pretty new.
Sort of new,
Yeah.
a few months old.
Okay. And it's a former shipping business,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a giant hook hanging in the lobby or the main thoroughfare here.
Do you
It's a bit
hang
intimidating.
bad employees off that hook?
We don't. It's just to remind us about craftsmanship and history.
Okay. We weren't really thinking that, but it crossed my mind as we were walking in. Anyway, so thanks for joining us. And also thank you for agreeing to speak at our conference coming up November 7th at the Tech Adoption Summit and here in San Francisco as well. So we wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Gusto is up to. I guess to start off, the question I always have about HR and payroll in the small business space is, who's Gusto's biggest competitor? Is it other HR payroll companies or is it pen and paper?
So our biggest individual competitor is still pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
About 58% of small businesses who pay people are still using pen and paper to do so. Within payroll, we also compete against ADP,
Okay.
Intuit, and Paychex. Individually, none of them have a significant market share, but our market is so vast
Right.
that they do have relatively large customer bases.
Right.
And so a lot of our customers are coming from those three companies. specifically Intuit because the cloud adoption has already occurred if you're using Intuit today.
Right. So the customers that you target most are customers that are already sort of tech have already adopted some technology. Is that a better customer, or is it any customer?
It's any customer, and many customers are paying people for the first time.
Right.
So we think both about the people who are switching their solutions or digitizing their solutions, as well as the customers who are really starting new businesses,
right,
and how we can help them do that better from the start.
Yeah. And as you indicated, it's a pretty fragmented market, right? There's lots of competitors and lots of folks who aren't using it. Do you feel that will be consolidated, or is this going to sort of remain fragmented?
Well, it's interesting as a marketer, I think a lot about distribution. And one reason that some markets remain fragmented is because distribution and acquisition can be very challenging. And we know that that's true in small businesses. So I think, we focus both on how do we gain market share through direct marketing efforts as well as word of mouth. And then over time, how do we actually build a brand of meaning? Because we do think that in a fragmented market, having brand awareness, having a brand identity, being known for the value that we can deliver to customers will be necessary.
Okay.
Let's talk about partnerships for a second. To what extent has Gusto gone down that partnering path? And from your experience, your prior experience, that partnering path can be really great, and it can be really tough. What's sort of your perspective on partnering?
Well, Gusto has benefited from incredibly strong relationships with accountants who serve small businesses as their trusted advisors and their service providers. So we have a partner program for accountants. They may use Gusto on behalf of their clients, or they may refer their clients to us. And that's a significant portion of our business and a big part of our strategy.
Yeah. I've been reading where accountants may be the door in for a lot of SaaS. I wonder to what extent, is HR the first thing that they're going to partner with, or is it going to be CRM platforms? I've been spending a lot of time looking at this whole technology space, managed service providers, and it looks like the accountants actually may have this really unique position in the marketplace. What do you?
Yeah, we would agree with that completely. I think when we talk to our accountant partners, they're building their businesses to be able to provide strategic advice and counsel, everything from sort of CFO for hire to growth strategies to their small business clients.
Stuff?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
But many of them, some of them naturally can advise their clients on that because they are growth-oriented businesses themselves. But some of them are looking for partnerships. And so we try to focus not just on the product that we deliver to and through accountants, but the service that we provide, the educational materials, the enablement, and the relationship to help them advise those clients. What was the other part of your question?
Well, just I think I asked, what are the pitfalls of partnerships too? Is that they end up owning your customer in some respects. If they're the provider down to their customer, do they own the relationship or do you?
We always co-own the relationship. Yeah, so it's not sort of a value-added reseller type model. It's more absolutely a partnership model that we have with our accountants and ultimately with their small businesses.
And those end businesses know it's Gusto doing the payroll.
Correct.
And doing the HR, human capital. What's the term today? Is it human capital? Is that the best term to describe this space?
Do you use that term?
We don't.
It seems a bit clinical. Right?
Yeah, it does. It feels a little bit exploitative to us, and we like to say that humans aren't resources even. So lots of different turns of phrase. I mean, no, we really just try to focus on the value that Gusto can provide. Of course, when you're marketing, right? And you're trying to distribute your product, you have to be aware of the reference points in the market. So we'll use
Human
HR
resources,
or HCM when necessary so that people can be introduced to us.
Okay. So are there other, you talked about accounting, are there other natural channels for bringing customers to Gusto? What
or even just SaaS to small businesses?
Yeah, so some of our partnerships that are really valued to us are with, for example, accounting software partners like Xero or point of sale solutions like Clover. which is a really interesting way to develop the relationship. To your point about what is the entry point? When are small businesses making these decisions, and how can you show up in those moments to gain that business? Point of sale solution is really interesting. I think everyone knows Square's success story.
Sure.
It's sort of being
Clover's
there.
is pretty good too, though.
Yeah.
I go into a lot of restaurants and see Clover's these days.
Yeah, they're all over the place. And, point of sale, when you as a business, as a restaurant, are making that decision, it's about the same time that you're deciding to hire people.
Maybe growing your business. What does, speaking of Clover, are you in their marketplace? Is that how you describe your partnership, or is it deeper than just the marketplace?
We are in the marketplace, and I would describe it as a co-marketing relationship. They're incredibly valued partners, and we'd love to do more with them. We try to have a breadth of partnerships because things work both ways. We want Gusto to be compatible with whatever stack different businesses are using, and vice versa. So we think that competition and choice and integrations are really valuable for small businesses.
Yeah, integrations. What we're seeing, I read some study, I think it's Blissfully. I don't know if you've ever followed or seen Blissfully. They have some study out there that says small businesses have 20 SaaS platforms, and they're spending $186,000. That was the number.
I think their definition of an SMB was a little different.
But because I don't know if any small business could spend $186,000
not the ones
on
you're
SaaS
targeting,
and still be in business, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there is a process of rationalization for these businesses, that they sign up for stuff they use or don't use. So that really goes into...
Well, that drives a conversation about, do people want to buy it all in one solution, and all the 8 or 10 things that they probably do use? Do they want that rationalized into a single point of sale, or a single relationship or whatever? Does Gusto think about that, or do you think about how you fit into that?
We do, and our consumer research and our conversations with our customers does uncover a significant amount of pain to this point.
Because they're not working together, all these things, right?
Yeah, and a lot of these solutions are replacing manual things, or providing necessary and intrinsically valuable solutions, but they aren't actually the business that small business owner or manager intends to do on a daily basis. Right. And so having to manage a stack of unintegrated things, or even just 20 different things, remembering what they're for and that the systems don't talk to each other, it's a danger for us because as an industry, because the more adoption that happens of the cloud, if it isn't rationalized, we actually have
you could have a backlash. Exactly.
Yeah.
So does Gusto think about offering things outside of human capital or HR, and where do you think you'll head in that direction? I mean, because you see companies that they start out in doing something for restaurants, and then sooner or later they're doing everything for that restaurant, including HR and including point of sale and whatever.
Sort of the vertical specialization.
Yes. So is that a form of competition? Is that
Yeah. So we've always had a very ambitious mission, as any good startup should.
Sure.
We really want to create a whole world where work is empowering a better life.
Right.
Not just for the employers that we serve, but also for their employees, for their teams. And so when we think about the products and services that we can provide, we think also not just about the relationship between the employers and the employees, but the value that the employees can get too. So we recently launched a product called Flexible Pay that allows employees to pick their own pay date, which is an obvious thing that would be good for people,
right?
And also get paid,
but pretty disruptive.
Faster.
Yeah.
So if I've worked the hours and they've been verified by my employer, I can get access to that cash anytime, rather than having to wait for the 2-week pay cycle.
Don't you find it remarkable that it's 2018 and it's the first I've ever heard of employees helping define when they get paid, as opposed to employers always being the definer.
Well,
of that.
And that created the payday lending industry, really, which is, I think an industry no one would cry over if it was disrupted, probably.
Right. And there is disruption happening. There are other companies that are attacking this problem. And Josh, our CEO, has a funny comparison funny, true comparison that, if you're a kid mowing somebody's lawn, you get paid right at the end of mowing their lawn.
Right.
But we haven't figured out as an industry how to deliver the same liquidity.
So who's providing the liquidity? Is it the employer or is it you in that scenario?
Yeah, so currently it's sort of a partnership with the employers. That employee has worked those hours.
Sure.
And so
it's a liability.
It's banked labor cost, but still.
Yeah. And we have.
It's a cash flow issue. It's a lot of things. Yeah.
It's a cash flow issue, which we know is really painful for small businesses as well. And there are industries.
Some of them
that
are just like sweating that 2-week payroll date and to have a ongoing payroll time. I mean, it's a complex problem.
And one advantage we really have as a payroll company is the data in our system. So we can know with a high degree of credibility that the funds will be there when they need to be there. And so that gives us a potential entry point to expand our products and service offering to employers and eventually to employees.
It reminds me of the early days of Groupon. Groupon was essentially a cash flow mechanism for many small businesses years and years ago, because they really did those things not so much because they wanted, they were trying to get new customers, but they got all this money up front. And it was really a cash flow. It was like it was a lending business, disguised as a mass, coupon and offers business. But cash flow is a very substantive issue for most small businesses.
So does this get you eventually into the capital business like everyone else seems to be getting into?
I mean, we try to keep a lot of options open, again, as a very ambitious startup. So we've been talking a lot about our plans there, but nothing new to report right this moment.
Okay. So we hear I don't want to call it a euphemism. It's not a euphemism, but it's a buzzword, customer experience.
Yeah.
You come from eSurance. I think one of your job titles had customer experience, if I recall correctly. It had customer experience in it. What does that mean to you, and also what does it mean to Gusto?
Sure. Well, it's a key strategic competitive advantage, and part and parcel of why we have an NPS over 70 is that Gusto is not just software. It's also service, and it's designed around the user, who is a non-HR pro. And so we've found a way to scale a SaaS business with a very high and very critical level of customer experience support. So small businesses face long-tail challenges that sort of pop up without any anticipation on their part, and they're not experts in those issues, and they must resolve them. And so sort of on demand, they need a partner to help them through that moment. And we see not just our customer experience team as critical to that, but we need to build those capabilities into our software experience. And we need to build content resources to help small businesses pass that moment. So we never refer to ourselves as a tool.
Because a tool means they do it all.
That's right.
Whereas a solution, service?
Sometimes Josh refers to what we sell as a people platform, but we always talk about not just the technology but also the service with equal importance.
It seems that's going to be hard to scale too, though. So I mean, because you get more customers, you need more service.
Or how do you scale it? Like maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's going pretty good so far. But I think there's sort of in business strategy, there's the concept of process power. And one of the things about scaling customer experience organizations that I did learn at eSurance is when you invest in automation, not just that touches your customer, but also that touches your internal folks who are helping your customers, then you can scale really high quality customer experience.
72, that's like, I think that's really good. 72
No, that's crazy good, but I'm trying to think of a comparison.
Well, you must know some comparisons.
Yes.
How's ADP's?
So really hard to get that from outside.
And notoriously difficult.
Every place you look or the studies you run, you get different numbers every time you do it. But from what we can tell, the industry category average is probably in the 30-ish range.
Wow.
Okay.
And then there's some
which is still a pretty good NPS.
Totally. I mean, for a utility product, and then also coming from insurance, much lower generally.
So you're glad to be in a business that has a nice high NPS.
And it's such a delight to try to scale a customer base of such a quality product that's helping such a deserving audience.
So does that mean then that word of mouth is your biggest marketing channel in a way?
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah, and has always been for Gusto.
So let's go down that path for a minute in terms of your direct or indirect strategy. It seems to me like one of the biggest challenges that you have to overcome is de-risking this move from paper and pen for small business to this thing called the cloud and this technology stuff. How do you de-risk that for the small businesses?
It's a really tricky problem because as much pain as there is in the market, there is sometimes an even bigger fear of
we see that in the data that we gather, which is that there's just a lot of inertia against change.
But isn't that about risk? Like
perceived risk.
It's perceived risk of I know how to do it this way. If I go over to that thing, am I going to be So how do you all think about that risk?
How to communicate it?
Yeah, so we think about it both functionally and emotionally. So functionally, that's about right time targeting and about making it easy to sample or switch. So those are pretty specific ways to try to get past that hurdle. But on the emotional side, that's where sort of risk and trust and perceived pain, especially delayed pain, can become real barriers. And so, again, that's one reason why we think a lot about not just the performance marketing kind of customer acquisition approach, but how we develop positioning, messaging, and ultimately a brand that's emotionally resonant. And it's why we also, in addition to media habits and all of the shopping behaviors and all of the sort of tried and true understanding of small businesses, really feel that this is, more than anything, a consumer marketing problem to solve.
Because you're trying to work their heart as much as their head.
They have to believe that their world will be better if they invest the time to switch to us.
And that is an investment on their part. That
Absolutely.
Time.
And what pain point do you express to? What pain point do you perceive, or what pain point do you focus on solving for them?
Well, there's some really specific and straightforward functional ones. So there's incredible pain associated with payroll errors that result in notices from the IRS and potentially fines and fees. And so, we have strong proof points there because people who switch to Gusto, 4 out of 5 of them experience fewer notices. There's also some very functional benefits that we focus on in terms of saving time. This is one of those responsibilities at small businesses that you probably didn't actually budget time for.
Interestingly enough, we have a little bit of data on why people switch, and it's efficiency, time savings, making
It's not even
cost.
price.
Cost is very low on the.
It isn't. It doesn't feel, at least from my background, like a super elastic market.
It is not all about price, is it?
No, it's very consistent across all the switching we see from desktop or paper to the cloud. And it's all about make my life easier, give me some time back during the day, solve some headaches. Cost is almost never above the third or the fourth.
I mean, some of our customers, have saved money by avoiding fines and fees and the time to deal with that. To pay for Gusto.
Right, but that wasn't the thing that got them to buy, or was it? In most of the cases,
it can be a trigger point, especially after you go through kind of a frustrating experience with that.
Sure.
And we're a full service solution. What that means is we file everything automatically for you. And if an issue arises, we have a dedicated tax resolution team that will help you through that process. And that's a hard message to communicate upper mid-funnel, but it is something that obviously contributes to our high NPS and makes our customers
Once
very
they're on board and they experience that. It's hard to wrap your head around that when you're considering it. But once
unless they've been through it already,
it really resonates.
In consumer insurance, we used to talk about how difficult it is to message around delayed gratification. But even trying to get mind share around delayed pain is even harder. So we, there's a lot of engagement that we try to do and just provide service to the market that is free, no questions asked with the content, for example, that we produce. Because that's the best way for someone to understand what we're all about.
And that's part of the de-risking process.
Right.
All that content that you're pushing.
Okay. Wrap up a little bit here. They'll keep you up at night question. What are the things that Gusto sees out there that give you concern? What are the things what are the hurdles out there, roadblocks, things that you fear as you build this business?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of smart people with good funding.
Yes, and you are smart and well-funded.
Attacking these meaty problems. So we learn from, but pay attention to competitors for sure. I think we, like a lot of small businesses, wonder about uncertainty in the broader economy.
Okay.
What kind of impact that will have for growth for our customers, and being prepared to help them through that.
How tied to the economy is Gusto? I mean, obviously, every business is to some degree, but
yeah, I mean, I'm no expert in it, but in deciding to work here, why I didn't worry about it was because we actually increase value relative to cost for our customers. So in a down cycle, we may actually still continue to be a really good choice. And then also at 60,000 small businesses, we're still just 1% of the addressable market. So we're just getting started, really.
Okay.
Massive amount of
so economic other than massive economic disruption, a cycle isn't necessarily that disruptive for you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we sort of wake up every day trying to deliver against the success, the happiness, and the goals of our customers. So we worry about the things that they worry about. I mean, I definitely worry about the confusion in the SaaS product marketplace and how small businesses will navigate through that.
Where they're just like,
and
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And often the whole paradox of choice argument is when there's too many choices, the best choice is no choice, right?
Right. And
not the best choice, but the easiest choice.
When you see a lot of companies building solutions for a market that are kind of in similar categories, sometimes, and I experience this in insurance, becomes a little bit of a customer acquisition arms race. Yeah. And sometimes the winner is not the best product. And then if it can sour the user base and the market, that can slow us all down.
Right.
VCR, beta.
Yeah.
So you have to be lucky in your competitors in some way.
Well, strategy. There's so many quotes, but basically, strategy is great, but execution and value truly matter.
Right. All right. Well, listen, we'll end it there, I think. Thank you very much for joining us today, Talithia, and we look forward to seeing you again here in November.
Yeah, I'm looking
thanks,
forward
Neil.
to it.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Charles.
Bye-bye. Okay, that's it for this episode of Above the Cloud. That was a great interview with Talithia. We're again really grateful to have her on as a guest, as well as a speaker at our upcoming event. Thanks again to Vendasta, as well as Mono and Boostability for your ongoing support for Above the Cloud. See you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.